And welcome back to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. On April 20th, a Deepwater Horizon exploded in the Gulf of Mexico, killing 11 crew members and causing the worst oil spill in history. As British Petroleum and government agencies struggle to cap the well and contain the oil, the Obama administration has placed a 6-month moratorium on deepwater offshore oil drilling. This has put a hold on the proposed oil exploration off the coast of Virginia's eastern shore. Joining us in studio to discuss the spill and how it affects Delmarva are Ed Ellis. He's founder and president of Ocean Petroleum, and also Dave Wilson, executive director of the Maryland Coastal Bays Program. Welcome to the show. I wanted to ask both of you, first of all, your own initial reaction to when you heard about the explosion on the well, and then as it became apparent that this was going to be a leak that was not going to be solved anytime soon. And Ed, you're the oil guy here. What was your reaction when you first heard that?
The oil guy. I'm an oil distributor. I don't produce this stuff in terms of crude oil. But Don, I was very concerned initially, originally, because these are high volume production wells. Typically, that's why they're out in deep water. That's why the oil companies are spending all that money to recover those resources, and to have an open well in the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. I was shocked that the media wasn't paying much attention, and I was really shocked that the government wasn't really paying much attention to the problem, and didn't for the first couple of weeks of the crisis.
Did you think that it would get this big initially?
Yeah, especially after we saw the films of the pipeline size. It looked to me like about an 18-inch diameter pipe. And I know the flow rates on 4-inch tubes that we deliver gasoline to gas stations with, and when you take that and you figure an 18-inch diameter pipe, the volume of escaping crude oil was just frightening.
Dave, what was your reaction when you saw this explosion and the leaking oil? I mean, is it a surprise to you?
Well, I mean, I guess initially when the explosion happened, I wasn't really prepared for the amount of oil that was going to be leaking into the Gulf. I think, like many others who are in my field, we just, it's difficult to fathom 20 to 40,000 gallons a day going into any water body, whether it's the Atlantic or the Gulf. And when the explosion first happened, I guess I didn't realize that the leak would be so difficult to stop. I guess I just couldn't fathom that there wouldn't be protective measures in place to stop this volume of oil from leaking into one of our greatest resources in the United States, which is the Gulf of Mexico, which produces, as you know, a large percentage of our seafood. So once the initial shock was over, of course, then we all started to kind of get together and actually ponder what might happen on the East Coast. And we have, the Maryland Coastal Bays Program is a national estuary program, and so we have, 5 other estuary programs in the Gulf who are meeting and talking about this, and actually we've been on a lot of conference calls about what's going on the past several weeks, and it's not good.
What do you think this means in terms of offshore oil drilling, the deep water kind anyway? I'll turn to you, Ed, for that. First of all, I mean, you got a sense about what's going on out there. You think this is going to shut this stuff down for a while? We got a 6-month moratorium right now.
Well, that speaks to itself. Yes, I do think they're going to shut it down for a while. I think that deepwater drilling is extremely hazardous, and it's a shame the industry's been forced to do it at that depth.
Although that's, as I understand, that's where the oil is.
Well, that's certainly there's oil in deep water, but there's a lot of oil in relatively shallow offshore formations that much more easy to get to and much safer to get to. And if there is a problem, I would think anyway, more easily to repair the damage.
Well, Ed, about this idea, and I've heard it a number of times, in which, as a matter of fact, famed conservative Rush Limbaugh, the conservative talk show host, suggested that perhaps it was the environmentalists who were at fault with all this because they pushed drilling in the coast, off the coast, into those waters further and further out.
Well, I think, if you look at past spills, I think what we've seen is that there's no really safe place to drill. I mean, whether it's deep water, obviously much more difficult to cap that well. Shallow water as well has its hazards, not only from a potential spill, which obviously makes it to shore more quickly, and is also difficult to cap, but also because of the resources that are near shore. You have a lot more reef structure, a lot more biological diversity close to shore. And of course that depends on the region that you're in and how close to shore you are. But in terms of simply drilling in deeper versus shallower water, I mean, there's where do you draw the line? Is it a mile, half mile, etc.? It's a sort of an arbitrary question, and it doesn't really get to the broader question, I think, of whether we should continue to extract fossil fuels like coal and oil versus putting a lot more energy and dollars into to renewable energy. Well,
are you opposed to all offshore drilling?
Well, it's me personally is one thing versus the Maryland Coastal Base Program, which doesn't have a position on it.
Sure, make that separation.
But yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I think the Obama administration's compromise, which was for a little bit further offshore, 50 miles in Virginia's case, was really because they needed votes for the climate bill, and that's the way you can call it politics, but it's really democracy. This is the way democracy is supposed to work. You reach compromise and you go from there. But I think, my guess is that in the absence of the need for that, I'm not sure the administration would probably endorse a lot of offshore drilling, whether it's for gas or oil.
Ed, what about you? I mean, where would you, and at least on a personal level, where would you be drawing the line here? I mean, I'm assuming that you wouldn't want to ban all offshore oil drilling, says David here, on a personal level, but where would you draw the line? I mean, where these wells, they seem to be awfully dangerous, even though we went for many years without an incident. It's clear that once these things happen, we weren't prepared.
And I think that speaks volumes to the government's lack of ability to regulate this industry or the will to regulate it. And I also think it speaks to the industry itself. It's unimaginable to me that in an area like the Gulf of Mexico that the oil industry wouldn't somehow have had contingency plans in place if a BP well blew out, or if an Exxon well blew out, or a Shell oil well blew out, that the whole industry could mobilize and assist in this effort to solve the problem. They in fact have that kind of thing in Alaska. Where they had an organized cleanup company that at least tried to head off some of the problems with the Valdez, and did, I think, in retrospect, a really pretty good job of getting the crude oil off of the Valdez, so it wouldn't leak into the. Not all of it would escape into the Gulf of what was that name of that Gulf? The sea Valdez spill took place in, Dave.
It was a sound, I think it was.
Yeah, whatever it was.
I was drawing a blank right now. I apologize.
So what do you think, though, what kind of safety measures do you think are required? I mean, as I've seen the news reports come out and out, there didn't seem to really be a plan by BP, and I suspect maybe that may be true of other oil companies. The BP seemed to be lobbying against some of the extra costs that some of the new regulations would require. For instance, there's the detector, the underwater detector that was then suddenly became optional after the Bush folks came in. I mean, where is the oil industry in this? I mean, don't they have to take some responsibility, I guess, real serious responsibility?
Well, clearly they do. I'm appalled, personally, at the way the industry has handled this. And I don't want to gang up on BP, but
sure.
Some of the reports that came out initially was that the well was brought into production with knowing that there were faults in the blowout preventer, which is the large device that's designed and installed to prevent exactly what has happened. And I don't know if that's the case, but if that's the case, then I think we've got a whole other issue with BP.
Do you think that's criminal?
If, in fact, that they've done something like that, it's not for me to determine whether it's criminal or to judge if
Sure.
it's criminal, but I would think that the federal government would be real interested. Should be.
Why do you think that they at least appear to have cut so many corners, that they weren't prepared? I mean, was it just simply trying to save money?
If, in fact, they did cut corners,
That's right.
Clearly, it was probably to either save money or save time or save effort.
David, do you think there's any safe way to drill that far down? I mean, we did have this sort of, at least certainly for many years, we did not have an accident like this. Now, of course, when it comes, people are unprepared. Do you think there's any safe way to do that?